I've come to northwest Cambodia in an attempt to solve one of the world's great riddles. How could a civilization that built this virtually disappear overnight? Their masterpiece lost to the jungle for over 400 years. Angkor Wat's rediscovery in the 19th century gave evidence once again that history is usually defined by those with the power.
The ancient Khmer inscriptions found on many of these temples proclaim the greatness of the kings who built them, but they tell us very little about the daily lives of the Khmer people.
But it was, after all, the ancient Khmer people who built the rice fields, canals, reservoirs, and temples that distinguish this civilization. And it's their features that are reflected in the faces of Cambodians today. To learn more about the Khmer, past and present, I've come to the old market in downtown Siem Reap.
We have the fish, vegetables, and meat, all different kinds of fruit.
Kin Po Tai is a cultural expert who grew up in this town.
These are on the bas relief of the temple. So this
one is right here?
Yeah, it's been preserved for 1,000 years. It's simple. It's just salted and dry out in the sun.
Tai tells me that many things we see around us have changed surprisingly little in the last millennium. And the proof is carved in stone just a few miles down the road.
So this is the second largest temple in Angkor after the Angkor Wat, and it's the Bayon. It's one of the most famous temples as well in Angkor.
Tai tells me that the Bayon is actually a Buddhist shrine. It was built in the 14th century by a Khmer king who converted to this new faith when it swept through Southeast Asia. The Bayon is famous for the more than 200 giant faces atop its 54 stone towers, and for its unique wall carvings.
These look a lot different than the ones over at Angkor Wat.
Yes, because here's more about the everyday life of the people and the histories of war and way of life. It's like a window to its past.
What do some of these things show us here?
All here you see the market. This is a lady selling fish.
So we were at the old market today, but this is the really old market,
That's
huh?
correct. This is the old market.
Is this some sort of gambling scene right here?
Yes, it is cockfighting between the Chinese or the Khmer here.
So it's Khmer versus Chinese cockfight, and everyone's placing their bets.
That's correct.
My money's on the Khmer.
And the Khmer.
These stunning reliefs immortalize a civilization.
The lady's giving birth here.
From the wild boar fights to the construction of their temples.
With the thousands of relief we have here at the Bayon, it seems like we have a very good idea of what life was like back in the 12th century. But are there any written accounts from outside the Khmer Empire that would corroborate all of this?
Yes, there was only one written account, but not by the Khmer peoples who live here. It was written by Cho Takwan, a great diplomat who arrived here in 1296, 1297, and he spent years living in the city here.
So he experienced life here and wrote about it, and it matches what we see on the walls.
That's correct.
Cho Tao Kwan's journal of Khmer life at the end of the 13th century has been invaluable to historians. But many suspect that he was more than a diplomat, that he was in fact a spy. As an agent of his own powerful empire, Zhou casts a wary eye on his host's military capabilities, for good reason. Temple carvings at the Bayon clearly show that the Khmer were a ferociously warlike people. And now, with the help of animators at Monash University in Australia, we have the first historically based 3D simulation of the Khmer in combat. Here against their arch-enemies, the Cham, who came out of what is now Vietnam. Behind every great empire is a great army. But this scene indicates that their success may have had less to do with superior tactics and weaponry than it did with the ferocity with which they fought. The Khmer created a dazzling kingdom that dominated Southeast Asia. And yet, in the 15th century, their civilization collapsed. Their city and temples were abandoned to the grip of the jungle.
Like in any great murder mystery, the list of suspects here is long. By the 1400s, it includes marauding invaders, a rebellious and disgruntled labor force, shifting state religion based on which king was in power, and internal struggles between the king and powerful Khmer families.
To find out the #1 reason why the Khmer Empire met its end, I've arranged to meet up again with Damian Evans, the Deputy Director of the Greater Anchor Project.
All right, so I have a few questions for you.
Sure, fire away.
Well, I'm completely impressed with how sophisticated the Khmer Empire was. But what happened? How did they disappear?
Well, the thing that you have to remember is that in the collapse of civilizations, there's rarely just one factor that you can point the finger at. Usually there's a range of different things going on. In the case of Angkor, what our work is showing is that the water management system was a critical factor in the decline.
Really? So the same thing that made them so great also led to their demise?
That's right. The water management system started off very simple, and then over the centuries became more and more complex and difficult to maintain. And this in turn caused problems for the fundamental basis of their economy, which was rice agriculture.
According to Damian, one thing led to another.
Hang on. All right. That looks like a great way to cool off.
Yeah, the water actually comes from the Siem Reap River way down here.
The remains of something.
Damian points out that this hill represents the difference between what the water level of the river once was and what it is today.
So what do we have here?
Believe it or not, this is actually a bridge. These are its arches right here.
Would this then be the bridge for the canal that we just came up from?
Exactly. 1,000 years ago, the water would have run straight down through here and passed beneath these arches onto the other side.
So we're standing on the original bed of the canal.
That's right. Increasingly, as the years went on, the water level cut down into the landscape and just basically ended up going around this bridge, meaning it was completely ineffective.
This is a drastic change.
Yeah.
Is this happening all across the empire?
It is. The thing is, when you start to get unpredictable water flows, things like flooding, too much or too little water, which starts to cause this down-cutting and these diversions in the rivers, then all of a sudden you end up with extremely serious problems.
Is it fair to conclude from all of this that the Khmer could have over-engineered their empire?
I think with the evidence that's coming to hand now from excavations and from the aerial surveys, I think it really supports that conclusion. So I think what you're saying is probably a fair assessment of what actually happened here.
The widespread failure of the Khmer's complex water system also left them vulnerable to attack. Their enemy to the north, the Siamese, successfully sacked Angkor in 1431. A year later, the royal court and Khmer people abandoned this site, moving south to where Cambodia's capital of Phnom Penh is today. For 600 remarkable years, these temples were added to and adorned. With their abandonment in the mid-15th century, however, one of the world's greatest building programs came to an end. But unlike other lost civilizations that have succumbed to the jungle, the Khmer's greatest temple, Angkor Wat, held on, with the help of a very special group of people.
The truth is, this place was never fully abandoned. After Buddhism was adopted as a state religion, this site became a place of pilgrimage.
Even after the last Khmer king left, the monks stayed and arduously worked to keep the forest from swallowing this great temple. And it's through their 4 centuries of effort that Angkor Wat is still here today. For many, Angkor Wat evokes a romantic tale of a 19th century explorer stumbling upon a lost civilization. But I came here to plumb the deeper mystery, to finally understand the real story behind the rise and fall of an amazing empire. Today, the Cambodians are so proud of their legacy, they're the only country to adorn their national flag with an image of a ruin. Angkor Wat, the ultimate symbol of majesty and mystery.